Hi, this is Robert Lee Camp, and welcome to another installment in our series on spiritual relationships. We're just about wrapping this up, but I really wanted to talk a little bit about what I call the blame game. And I've spoken of it before already in this series, but I want to discuss it a little bit more at length. In my own relationships, I became a master, you might say, in making my partner the one who was at fault for whatever was going on that was upsetting me. Queen of Diamonds, which is my card, we often have a lot of deep emotional insecurity. And we don't like it, but we have it. And my Jack of Clubs declinate ruler would use my mind to argue with my partners and to turn everything around so that it was their fault when something would come up. It took me a really long time to see that this dynamic was going on. But I think that if you look at any relationship, you'll see that the blaming of each partner by the other is the major factor in the destruction of the relationship. I think it's the number one factor, and it's the most difficult to really overcome, and it's the most spiritual thing you can do in any relationship, and it can have the most transformative effect on a relationship if you can transform the way you are around this blame thing. Like, I would be with a partner, and if I was feeling good and I did something that upset them, they would get upset. And then I would blame them for getting upset, because now I'm upset. Instead of responding in a loving way to whatever's going on, I'm upset, so now I want to throw that energy back on them. That was my particular MO, and it varies from person to person. Not everybody's not alike about this, but the blame thing is a very consistent thing. It is like the number one big thing in a relationship. Any time that we're using the you word and pointing our finger at our partner, we know that we're in blame mode. So what I realized after a long time was that there was something going on in here that I wasn't paying attention to. I didn't want to feel what I was feeling, and most of it was fear. And for me, it was fear. And earlier in my life, I never even acknowledged fear. I would just go straight to anger and express anger. And, underneath, I've discovered that underneath all anger is fear. That's how it works. So if you're angry at your partner, you're afraid. You may not recognize that you're afraid, but that's what's going on. That's really what's going on. So after sort of being confronted with this over and over again and getting feedback from people outside of me, I began to see what was really going on. And more in my life, I'm able to, when I get upset, to look at myself instead of looking at my partner for some kind of change, for them to be different, for them to stop acting the way they are. And that takes a lot of energy, especially for, some of us who have a lot of energy that's aggressive or is used to being successful or used to being, dominant, you might say, all these things. Having to go inside and acknowledge that you're afraid and to yourself, and you don't even have to tell your partner, but to be honest with yourself first about what's really going on is a huge transformation. And I've spoken about like the finger pointing thing, and that's the whole blame thing. So if I can look at myself and say, okay, I'm afraid or I'm upset, I'm angry, what's going on in here? What is going on in here? And sometimes, honestly, the feelings are so intense for me, and this may be true for some of you too, they're so intense that it's just very difficult. It's very difficult. I feel like sometimes I just can't handle it. Like I'm going to have to put that energy out on my partner. I just can't seem to contain all of that sometimes, you know. But I'm finding that I can, that it's never too much, even though it might feel that way at times. There's always an opening for me to be with what is coming up for me and to look at it as me and not my partner's fault. And even if my partner does act unlovingly to me or unthoughtful, and I may have, 100% supporting evidence to prove that that's the case, even in those situations, it's the upset inside of me that needs tending to, not their behavior. And it's a transformative thing. It's probably the most transformative thing you can do in a relationship. And if you're going to have a real, deep, committed, loving, and amazing relationship, you're going to have to look at your own reactions to your partner. Anything that we resist, that gets us upset, that causes us to label them or to judge them, any of these things is always something inside that we just don't want to feel, don't want to experience, just want nothing to do with it. We don't want to acknowledge even that we are having these negative feelings. We would much rather put the blame on somebody else and make it their fault. But if you really want to have this amazing relationship, that the potential is there, and it's not impossible. It is difficult, but it's not impossible. This is what will have to happen. And it doesn't require a partner that does it. It just requires you. It doesn't require that you have a partner that's going to make these transformations. However, you will find that if you start practicing this and really get to be with yourself and your own pain, and a lot of this pain came from our childhood or sometimes even past lives, we'll find that when you can be with that more, you'll find your partner just changes. They all of a sudden they become the better partner that you always wanted or that you imagined them to be when you first met. So again, I just want to encourage you to look at your relationships in a whole different light and take the spotlight off of your partner and put it onto yourself, which is what spiritualism is all about. Being spiritual is really about self-discovery, self-acknowledgement, self-realization is the word, right? So how can we realize ourselves until we start becoming real about what's going on? That's the way that I see it. And it's working. It's actually working, okay, for somebody who I thought may never see that happening. It actually does work, even though it's difficult. And I find it to be the most rewarding thing in my life right now. It may not be, for a lot of people, a relationship may not be that important. But for me right now, the spiritual transformation that's happening using the vehicle of relationship is really what's going on in my life that I value the most. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this video and this series. I probably won't have any other additions to this unless I come up with some ideas later. But I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed sharing it with you, and I love all the feedback that I get, the comments and things. So feel free to keep commenting or ask questions if you like. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.